Aperture is one of the things you just need to understand if you ever want to be a filmmaker or photographer. In this video, I will teach you what aperture is in the most simple and practical way. Let's look at your lens and think that there's a hole you're shooting through. This expands and shrinks based on what kind of aperture settings you're using. What I found to be the best way to understand this was to just focus on the aperture values. On your display you will see something like f2.8. This says something about the aperture value that you're using. Aperture is all about light. How much light is getting into your camera. The lower the aperture value, the bigger the hole is and the more light will come into your sensor. This is relevant to know if you're shooting in low light situations. If you don't have much light in your room or in your shot, you might want to go with a lower aperture value. You are sacrificing something when you go down on the aperture value, because the aperture is also determining how much of your shot is in focus. When shooting this, I have an aperture of 2.5. That means that the background will be blurry, and if I had something in the foreground, that would be blurry too. The lower the aperture value, the less will be in focus. So if you have a very low aperture value, you might actually be able to focus on the nose and have the eyes being blurry. Some lenses come with a very low base aperture, like this one, it's 1.2. Others come in 2.8 or higher. You might have heard people saying that they have fast lenses. This is something about the lens's ability to go down on the aperture value. The lower the aperture value, the faster the lens. There are situations where you do not want to shoot with a low aperture value. This is when you're filming landscape or filming several people in the frame at the same time. If you're shooting with the purpose of showing off several people in the frame and one of them is blurry, this will totally change the framing and the message of your shot. It needs to be said that in a lot of cases you are not in control of the light and you just have to go down on the aperture value. This is when our next video will be helpful, when we're talking about ISO.